Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you all for coming out. I'm Deputy Chief Aaron Hughley. I oversee our investigations division and serve as our agency's public information officer. Standing here with me today is Southfield Police Chief Elvin V. Barron, Deputy Chief Jeffrey Jagowski, who oversees our patrol division, Detective Lieutenant Mustafa Beasy, and Detective Sergeant Jared Womble. Today, Chief Barron will update the public regarding a tragic and unfortunate incident involving one of our youth. The incident occurred yesterday, Sunday, February 11th, at approximately 8:42 a.m. The victim, a 15-year-old resident of the city of Ferndale, was inside a room at the Westin Hotel here in the city of Southfield when he sustained a single gunshot wound to the head. He was transported to an area hospital where he is listed in grave condition. I ask that you please hold all of your questions until the conclusion of the press briefing and turn off or mute any cell phones or other electronic devices. A press packet is available on the back table, which includes a USB drive of all files presented here today. Also, for record-keeping purposes, we ask that you complete our media sign-in sheet also to the rear of the room. And without any further delay, Chief Barron.
Thank you, Deputy Chief. I certainly want to thank our media for attending as well. Certainly, when these incidents happen, particularly with our youth, a lot of calls come into the Southfield Police Department for an explanation. I'll be very candid with you. This is very difficult to explain, and I'm not in the greatest of mood because of it. Because I have to explain to the community how a group of 15-year-olds are left at a hotel room unsupervised that had access to weapons. We see these things play out time and time again, and the story remains the same. Where is the parental supervision, and then how do these teens get access to weapons? And so again, I classify this as something that is totally preventable. When this incident happened, I do want to thank the media for having your patience and also the community, because there are steps that had to take place before we get the media involved. The first step was to make sure we notified the parents that their loved one has succumbed to a gunshot wound, a critical gunshot wound. Also, we made steps to ensure that we gave the family a little bit of time to notify other family members so they're not hearing about this for the first time on TV. In addition to that, we also have to be very careful to include the schools. And so we were able to locate the school where this young man attended, Loyola High School in the city of Detroit. I did have an opportunity to talk to Principal Black because it was important to give him the information. That way the schools could be prepared to set up grief counselors, because what my understanding is, this juvenile was pretty well known and was highly known within the community. And so we did give the opportunity for Principal Black to respond accordingly with having grief counselors on hand. As the Deputy Chief alluded to, we have a 15-year-old who is a resident of the city of Ferndale, who was our victim. He is in grave condition. I said again, grave condition. He did suffer one single gunshot wound to the head, and the family was notified immediately. They did respond to the hospital to be alongside of their loved one. The arrestee, another 15-year-old who resides in the city of Detroit. I did speak to the Oakland County Prosecutor's Office, particularly Prosecutor Dave Williams. We talked about the case and the charges that the Southfield Police Department has presented to the Prosecutor's Office is 2 counts of carrying a concealed weapon. Now, additional charges may come forward as this investigation continues. Right now, we're at the infancy stages of this investigation. We still have additional people we need to interview, evidence that has to be processed, and so there'll be a lot of questions that you may have that we may not have the answers to at this time, but I will certainly update you at the appropriate time. But give you the timeline of the incident. Again, the incident occurred Sunday, February 11th of this year at approximately 8:42 that morning. Southfield officers responded to 15,000 Town Center, which is the Westin Hotel, on report of a male who had been shot in the head inside of a hotel room on the 7th floor. Southfield officers arrived on scene and immediately began life-saving measures to the victim. Officers observed that the victim had suffered a single gunshot wound to the head. Southfield paramedics were also responded to the scene, and they arrived within minutes as well. Southfield officers turned over care of the treatment to the medics, and they presented the child to the Providence Hospital for additional care and advanced care, particularly due to the nature of those rooms. Now, Southfield police officers were responding to this. Again, they were given information of a person who had been shot, and also they're looking for any potential suspects or any other evidence that may be still on scene. And what they observed was two juveniles who were near the elevator on the 7th floor, and they were able to detain them for investigation. During that investigation, they discovered that one of the two juveniles was in possession of a stolen Glock 22 .40 caliber handgun with a 22-round extended magazine equipped with the laser light, and he had this hidden on his groin area. And again, this firearm was reported stolen on June 5th out of the city of Flint, Michigan. He also had a second handgun in his possession, again in his waistband, a Glock 26 9mm with an extended magazine concealed in his waistband as well. And that weapon, there's no record of ownership at this time. The juvenile was detained, arrested, transported to Children's Village for processing and housing. Southfield detectives continued their investigation, and they conducted a search warrant of the room in question and recovered one spent .40 caliber shell casing along with 9mm extended magazine with 20 live rounds also on scene. And so we did collect this evidence, and we're processing it as we speak. What we know early on from the investigation, based on the shell casing, is that we believe one of the weapons that we recovered is the weapon that was responsible for inflicting the gunshot wound to this young man. As you all know, the evidence will be processed. Ballistic analysis has to take place. We'll also, what we call ballistic DNA analysis will also, because we want to identify the proper owner who had their hands on this weapon, the whole shebang when it comes to investigations. So I started off this conversation a little earlier with my displeasure for the fact that, we got juveniles in a hotel room. And as I started asking questions, well, how did this come to be? And certainly the questions you're going to ask me. So what we discovered is that an adult rented the room for them and then turned the room over to them. And so that investigation of who this person is in process. As you know, with the latest in technology, people are able to rent rooms online. And so we're going through all the technology, certainly reviewing any video that is available at the hotel. We did recover some video of the persons in question. And so again, a lot of information that we still need from the public that we're seeking as we try to put this situation together and make some sense of it. And what I will say, there's no sense you can make out of a 15-year-old struggling for life. And as the deputy chief alluded to, he's in grave condition. I'll say it again, grave condition. And this could have been prevented by responsible parental involvement of where your children are at, and also the access to weapons that these juveniles obviously had in their possession. What we know about the group who were at the hotel, we believe as many as 5 were in the hotel during the time of the incident. Again, when we responded to the scene, we found the victim suffering from the gunshot wound, and then outside of the hotel room, we did discover 2 other individuals, one being our detainee, other one being a witness to what we have uncovered. And so for that, I'll open up the floor for questions.
Chief, were they having a party, or what was the situation?
So what was described to us is that this group of young men get together periodically for gatherings, and then on this night, a decision was made to rent a room in the city of Southfield, a Westin Hotel.
All teenagers?
All teenagers were involved in occupying the room. We believe an adult rented the room and then turned the room over to the juveniles for their stay.
And all males?
All males.
To clarify, Chief, you referenced maybe an online reservation you're still investigating. Was this reservation made online? And when you say you believe it was an adult, theoretically, could these kids have done it in a parent's name online themselves? Or have you determined you believe strongly it's an adult that did this for them?
Yes, so the initial request for the room did occur online. Certainly, there's individuals, as you all know, when you rent a hotel room, generally you have to come in, show ID and things like that. And so there is some evidence that we're going to process that may show someone who may be involved in that transaction. But to answer your question, the original transaction was online.
Chief, that person face charges?
That's what I was going to ask.
So all of this will be collected and presented to the Oakland County Prosecutor's Office to see what charges, if any, will be presented for the individual who turned over a room to a group of teens.
And you identify that person?
So I can't, yeah, so we've identified who that person is, but at this time, with no charges pending, we're going to wait till we present everything to the prosecutor's office for a decision on what that person may or may not face.
Has your witness or anybody been able to say whether this was out of anger or maybe just, carelessness?
Yeah, so that information has not been disclosed to us at this time. So again, we are still interviewing individuals, some again that were on the scene, others that were not on the scene. As relates to the juvenile that we took into custody, he did obtain a lawyer by way of his parents. And so as you all know, any questioning with the juvenile per the attorney's request, we did cease any request for interviewing of that juvenile.
Chief, I just want to jump in with some of the basics. So an adult, you said possibly charges are going to be requested on the adult or being looked at?
Yes, so I'm going to request that the prosecutor look at what charges, if any, could be issued to an adult who obtains a hotel room for juveniles and then return them over to that room with no supervision.
People would think that the connection would be father, uncle, brother, or what's the connection?
So we'll leave that until the appropriate time, but at the appropriate time, we will disclose who this person is and what the decision is from the prosecutor.
In Glock 40 out of Flint, I know you guys are investigating, but if that's stolen and ends up somewhere where the 15-year-old gets it, someone's responsible for that, I suppose. So you guys are backtracking where that came from, and was that gun not secured, and the 15-year-old was able to get it and take it there?
Right. So the date that the weapon was stolen was June 5th, 2022. So it's been stolen for quite some time. But yes, we will be in contact with the Flint Police Department, obtain the reports on that, and then see if we can backtrack exactly where it may have come from and then how possibly these teens had access to that weapon.
And the person responsible for that weapon could be looked at by you.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And then on the hood here, you see a bag there and a lighter bag. Is that marijuana? Is that crack?
So you see on the screen marijuana and shrooms also were recovered in the room. What you don't see is also a scale that was recovered as well.
So scale, someone's in there selling.
Well, there's no evidence for me to confirm that. But if I put my common sense hat on, something was happening. We just don't know what it is at this time.
And all five are together as friends, or did the 15-year-old who's now charged, was he called to come in?
So what we've learned is that the three that we did detain are definitely all friends. There were two other who left before police officer arrival, and it appears that those individuals were also friends of the entire party as well.
Even the person with the firearm?
Correct.
So
Well, we don't
the
know
three
who squeezed
teens
the
are
trigger.
just-
We don't know if it's suicide. We don't know if it's what happened, how the kid was shot. We don't know.
Right. We don't know exactly how it transpired, but again, we did locate weapons that we believe were involved. We did take them off one of the juveniles, and then we're going to process the information accordingly.
Thank you.
How many teens remain in custody right now?
So just one in custody. That is the one who had in possession both weapons.
Do you know who called 911?
Yeah, one of the teens from inside of the room did call 911.
But then they left.
As police officers arrived, they did observe the teens outside of that room, where we believe possibly attempting to leave the hotel.
Chief, when did they check in? Meaning, when did the adult assist them? Were they in from the night before? How long had they been?
Yeah, it appears that they checked in the night before. So Saturday into Sunday is what we believe the room was rented for.
And is there any connection at all apparent with the person you have in custody along with the person who had the gun stolen, meaning maybe an extended family member in Flint, or is there any evident connection there?
Yeah, there's no evidence right now that connects the weapon being stolen with any relationship involvement, but just that it was stolen, and then somehow between June 5th of 2022 and yesterday, they had this weapon in their possession.
Thank you.
And you
Chief,
guys
just to
are
be clear,
talking to
just-
the person.
just
You know who
because-
rented the room, and you're talking to that person. You're interviewing the person.
That will be in process.
In process,
Right.
cooperating or already in contact?
Not in contact at this time.
And I'm going to butt into Kim real fast, but just, you hit on this at the beginning, that's 125, 50, 225, that's an expense, like, who does that? Who rents a room for a bunch of teenagers?
Yeah, and it's a question I wish I had the answers for. You know, we see this play out across the country: youth, weapons, unsupervised, a recipe for disaster. In this case, looks like it's gonna be a tragic incident.
And Chief, just to be clear, because there's been some suggestion that the person who had the gun stolen could face some sort of charges for not having it secured. If someone breaks into somebody's house and steals an unsecured gun, unless there are children inside the house, there's no responsibility to have that gun locked up in a box or anything like that, correct?
Yeah, and I make sure we clarify exactly what you're saying. So, as we stand here today, there is no pending charges for the victim whose gun was stolen. Right now, we're just looking at how the juvenile got in possession of the weapon, how it was stolen, and then why he has these in his waistband, along with a second firearm, when the Southfield police respond after someone is critically wounded.
When the teens were approached in the hotel, the ones that were leaving, exiting through the elevator, did they try to distance themselves from the situation that happened, from the shooting? Were they initially cooperative before a lawyer got involved? Or what?
Well, Southfield officers, when they arrived, were looking for anyone that would be connected to the room, in close proximity of the room. So as soon as they notified that they saw two juveniles exiting the hotel, knowing that the 911 call came in from what appeared to be some young adults, they were able to put their common sense hat on, is what I'll call it, and detain them to make sure they didn't have anything connected to that room. And as the investigation unfolded, they were correct. They were occupants of that room, and in fact, evidence from the incident was on the one that we detained.
To clarify, please, and forgive me if I've already said it and I didn't hear it, the three that were friends, all at the same high school, Loyola, the other two also, or were they not at the same school?
So-
you have 5 individuals, same school.
Yeah, from my understanding, there's different schools that they're associated with, but our victim is an attendee of Loyola High School in the city of Detroit.
And lastly, for me at least, when you talk critical non-survivable, are we already looking at, involuntary manslaughter or those type of charges being a recommendation? Are you leaving that to the prosecutor, or is that not an appropriate leap to make here?
Well, it's something to consider. Right now, we're going to leave that to the prosecutor's office to review our investigation and determine what charges are appropriate at this time. But again, more investigative, more homework needs to be done on this, and we are still in the infancy stages.
Chief, you've got a 15-year-old who's well-known in the school, which is a well-known school in Detroit, well-known in his community, and you're finding this stuff out about gun violence. Like, what is going through your mind as you're getting this information and you're having to talk to his family about this? And how is his family holding up when you make the phone call?
So, to answer your question, we've been beating the drum on gun safety. We've partnered with numerous police agencies. In fact, even in Southfield, we did a gun violence prevention forum. You see James White talking about these things when unattended weapons come into hands of children. You see this thing play out across the country all the time. And at some point, you would think that the parents, individuals possessing these weapons will get a clue that this is serious. And when you find yourself in possession of a handgun, and let's say you are a rightful gun owner, a legal gun owner, to make sure they're properly secured and stowed. That way, juveniles or children are not getting their hands on these unattended weapons to either shoot themselves accidentally or their playmates. And then you have juveniles who may be out looking to have access to weapons for whatever reason. And they get their hands on these weapons, and then they're out in the community not realizing that this, again, is serious business. Owning and possessing a handgun takes a lot of responsibility. Even when you talk about being trained as a police officer, we go through months and months of training, scenarios to even know how to handle a weapon, let alone how to shoot a weapon. And so these are things that we got to continue to beat the drum on. We're going to continue that effort. Again, this is touching the community. I've gotten calls from schools from parents. Certainly my detectives reach out to the victim's mother to offer their condolences and let them know we're going to do what we can to investigate this thoroughly. And so a lot of work needs to be done. As I said before, very troubled about this incident. This is totally preventable, and certainly not happy this afternoon to have to stand before you in the community and explain how this happened. Because again, the underlying cause of this is ensuring that our youth are properly supervised. These are 10th graders out on a Saturday night into Sunday unsupervised. And then you got to balance this thing because you have one of these young adults fighting for his life, and from what I was told, in grave condition.
And you said if he's on life support?
Yes.
So they're not planning any surgery or anything like that to try to save his life that you know of?
So that would be between the family and the hospital staff. But as far as I'm aware, at this time, the medical procedures have stopped as it relates to surgeries. But again, between the hospital staff and the family, they'll decide whether or not more advanced treatment would be necessary or could it aid in the recovery.
I don't mean to be flippant, but non-survivable, just to clarify. I read that individually as somebody who's not gonna make it, whether it's brain dead, quote unquote, or whatever it may be, life support. I mean, this person is essentially has no chance for a recovery and moving on in life, correct?
Yeah, it appears as though a quality of life, would not be the greatest at this time. But again, referring back to the medical staff, I'll defer to them to continue to update us on if that's accurate, and it does appear that it is, but rather defer to them for that type of news.
And Chief, are all of these boys 15 years old?
From my understanding, 15, the ones that we came in contact with that I described to you, the victim and the 2 that were inside of the room, and of the 2 that we are in the process of looking for to interview, 116, 115.
So 4 15 and 1 16-year-old.
Correct.
And all in the 10th grade?
Their grade level, I'm not certain, but I am certain about the ages.
But not all at Loyola.
Correct. Not all of them attend Loyola. Just one that I'm aware of attends Loyola, and the rest may or may not attend, but that's where the victim attends.
Okay, and then the shooter, can you say where the shooter attends?
A school out of the Ferndale School District.
Okay, the shooter.
Correct.
And then the victim attends the Loyola in Detroit.
Correct.
And Chief, I'm trying to understand who rents rooms for kids, and they do this on a regular basis?
Well, unknown how often the hotel room renting is done. What I have been advised of is that they routinely get together as friends. And in this case, the decision was made to rent a room in the city of Southfield.
And the teen was shot in the head and the back of the head specifically?
Well, without getting into any graphics, but in the front of the head.
Okay. Is there any information that you have that would lead you to believe that they were playing some sort of Russian roulette or anything?
No, I have not had any evidence to suggest that. Certainly, just like you, I've heard some of the rumors that may be floating around the community, which was important for us to have this press conference. If you have information, certainly contact the Southfield Police Department. We'll vet all the information that comes in. But at this time, there's no evidence that we've uncovered that would suggest a game of Russian roulette. But again, our investigation is still ongoing.
Do you know if it's an accident, Chief, with a discharge that happened with handling it, or was it shooting or robbery attempt, something like that?
Yeah, it's still wide open at this point. Certainly continue our investigation, continue our interviewing of witnesses, and then we'll come up with exactly how this transpired and then move accordingly.
One more question, please, for me, if I could, on the person with the adult in the room. Have you said, or can you clarify, is that person related to the victim, the shooter, or anybody in particular? Who did the renting, which child's parent or guardian or whomever?
Right. At this time, I'll withhold that identification or even that surrounding information about that person until we've actually moved forward with our investigation and then possibly a charging decision.
Can you clarify at all if it's an uncle or a parent or any type of relationship?
I cannot.
Thank you.
Right, right.
Do you know how much the room rented for?
I don't know, but generally hotels on a Saturday night at that particular hotel is in excess of $200. But I don't know the exact amount at this time.
Chief, do you have surveillance from the 7th floor to show you what activity was going in and out there?
So there is some evidence collected at the hotel. Is limited, but we did collect some evidence, video evidence from outside of the hotel room and also the lobby.
Is there any evidence that the victim was laying in the bed?
I'll reserve that again for our investigation and update you at the appropriate time on that. Yeah.
Drug use, alcohol, any evidence of either?
I'm sorry?
Drug use or alcohol, any evidence of either? I know they were in possession, but
Yeah, no evidence of alcohol on premises, just the marijuana and shrooms that we recovered from the room.
That was in the room or the pocket of the individual?
In the room.
In the room. And obviously, this is gonna be broadcast, and, what would you like anybody to come forward with? If anybody has any information, we know teenagers talk, parents talk, what can somebody out there do to help you in your investigation?
Well, if you have any information related to this incident, certainly reach out to the Southfield Police Department. A detective will take a statement, interview that person, so we can get some resolve for this family. Right now, you got a mother grieving. You have other family members grieving. You have students who are grieving because, from my understanding, he was very popular within the school. And so a lot of people are affected by this. This is irresponsible behavior that led to this young man being shot. But we're going to do all that we can to uncover what happened and hold whoever is responsible will be held accountable.
If the victim's medical condition changes, does that affect what you look to maybe charge the person who's been in the room?
Yeah, so right now the charges are based on the evidence of having two weapons on his person. Certainly, so carrying a concealed weapon are the charges right now, ×2. And certainly, as the investigation developed, we learn more information. Additional charges could be added on based on the use of the weapons.
And do you believe the teenager that was in possession of the gun is actually the person that actually fired the shot?
We don't know at this time. Again, we're going to process the weapons, continue our investigation, but he was in possession of those weapons at the time Southfield Police Department came in contact with him. With exact knowledge of what occurred in that room, we're still working on that.
And Chief, just so I get this straight to make we're accurate, the adult who booked the room has to come in with ID and continue the booking process. That person did that with their own name and ID and everything?
Right, so we do have evidence that someone did come inside of the hotel room and would appear to be completing that transaction.
And you're in touch with that person?
We will be. Right.
This is maybe too, it's gonna sound like I watch way too much TV, but gunshot residue tests, were they done on the teens that were still at the location?
No.
And no one just had disturbance, party, loud noises, and then shooting? Any calls? Like
He had
that?
no calls connected to a loud noise or whatnot. Again, this happened early in the morning, but no calls that came in regarding their activities in the room until the shots rang, and then the call was made from inside of the room.
Thanks.
I know I promised you last question a couple of questions ago. And this may be something you can't outwardly answer, but the way I'm gonna ask it is, what don't you know? Meaning, it seems a pretty limited set of facts. What would you be appealing to the public for help in this type of case?
Well, we ask the public because individuals do have conversations, and if they come of any knowledge to what may or may not have happened inside of that room, certainly let us have that information so we can process it and investigate it. And so any tip, any information is valuable. Just leave it to us and we'll determine whether it's credible or not. But we are asking anyone to have any knowledge, please reach out to the Southfield Police Department for a statement.
Chief, is there any reason that the gunshot residue wasn't done?
Well, that process, and I probably have to defer to the detectives, that process was at some point came under criticism because there was individuals who had been administered a gun residue in previous cases, not related to Southfield, and it was determined that that process wasn't necessarily accurate. So most police departments, if not all, have gotten away from that particular process early investigation. Because what would happen in the past, an individual who may, I'm just going to use this as an example, work at a collision shop or whatnot, and now you introducing them as a suspect based on the test coming back positive, who may or may not have anything to do with that particular incident. So that's why we kind of scale back from that to make sure we don't put anybody in a position where they are falsely accused.
Thanks, Chief.
Yes,
Thank you,
thank
sir.
you, thank you,
Thank you, Chief.
thank you, thank you.